Originally, all the Vedic societies were really similar, but after they settled down, and after about 1,000, when we see a huge rise in settled agriculture, there's a greater divide between the people who own the land, who control it, and the people who work it. And as those divisions harden over generations, the Vedic people create a pretty unique social system that's based on very rigid, firm, and flexible class distinctions. When the Portuguese come in here in the, I guess it's the 1600s, 1500s, no, well before that, the 13 and 1400s, they actually give this a new name. They call it the caste system. So there are different social statuses. They're all kind of in a ladder in terms of their importance. And the dominant of these groups, or castes, becomes known as the Kshatriya. They were originally the warriors. They had power because as they came in and conquered areas, they controlled the land. And lesser class members become known as the Vaishya. And I'm probably mispronouncing a lot of this stuff. So one, I apologize for that. But also know that I don't expect you to pronounce this properly. These are kind of the next step down the ladder. These are householders. They work land. They tend livestock. Especially in areas where rice production expands, in the Ganges Plain, for example. Households hired laborers and often used slaves, and these folks who come from outside of the Vedic lineages come to be known as the Shudras, which more or less means the little ones. Over time, these turn into a four-set caste system that's known as the Varna. The Kshatriya control the land, the people who are in it, they govern. The Vaishyas were agrarian commoners. The Shudras are servants and laborers. And the group that is outside of all these and probably becomes the most important come to be known as Brahmins. And these are priests who perform rituals. In those rituals, they claim to be connected with gods, and so they can determine God's wills. And these folks actually kind of split in some ways. Some function as priests for chiefs, but some live a very different type of life, withdrawn from society, kind of away in forests, discussing philosophical questions with students. They live a life that we would call ascetic, divorced from worldly pleasures. These folks, these Brahmins, are seen as being at the top of the social pyramid because they claim that they can communicate with heaven. But one of the things we'll see in this class is how they claim they can communicate, what they claim they communicate, becomes very different and contentious over time. As agriculture becomes even more important to these folks, Brahmins act as agents for Agni, the god of fire. They burn land to prepare it for cultivation. And as they settle down, one of the things we recognize is that this society looks a heck of a lot different than that from a couple of generations ago. They don't resemble their more or less egalitarian, equal pastoral ancestors. And eventually, really powerful monarchies arise. They have hereditary kings who tend to incorporate a council of elders, but really consolidate power into their own control.